Angela, would you please establish a quorum, please?
Greg Baker,
Here.
Melissa Box,
Here.
Jenna Hunter,
Here.
Matt McGregor,
Yes, ma'am.
Marla Mitchell,
Here.
Renee Patel,
Yes.
Daniel Seitz,
Here.
Devin Sonnenfeld, Matthew Turner, Alex Williams,
Here.
Sue Braun,
Here.
Matt Burkhart.
Devon's online.
We have Devin and Matt online.
Mr. Gregg, would you please do the invocation today?
Heavenly Father, thank you for today, thank you for a new year and just the opportunity to live in the Ozarks and how you bless this area. I just pray for all the businesses here that you would just give us wisdom, discernment in what we do, give our board the same. Thank you for people here that are willing to serve this community, and we just ask that you keep us humble and under your lordship. And we just pray these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
And self-introductions. Alex, why don't we start with you and we'll just go around this way.
Okay, I'm Alex Williams. I work at Getting Floor. It's a floor covering store and base here in the Branson Meadows Mall, just behind the building.
Jen Hunter, Foreman Business Innovations, accounting, bookkeeping, taxes, all the fun things that are happening right now.
I'm Dan Sykes. I'm a financial advisor with Cadence Investments, soon to be Huntington Bank. That's right.
Vinny Patel from Branson Fast and Seven Gables.
I'm Marla Mitchell, Committee President, Simmons Bank.
I'm Sue Braun with Classic Creations and More, the House of Bling, right down the street from Vinny's place.
Matt Grove, Holdings, different things in town.
Greg Baker with Branson Bank.
Melissa Box, Market President with Generations Bank, and also owner of Advanced Seven Strategy.
Max McGregor for financial and financial advisor.
Well, thank y'all for being here today. And for sure today, I mean, it is so doggone cold out there. It's almost like being too hot in the summertime when you come in here like this. So I know you're all dedicated to what we're doing here today. And with that being said, you know that we have kind of a reduced meeting schedule this month. If any of you have any comments or concerns or whatever about that meeting schedule, if you feel like you financial people, we need to have more meetings or if we're okay the way we are, please let us know if there's any concerns there at all. And, let's see, need to go on and approve the agenda.
Move to approve the agenda.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the agenda. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Next, we're going on to the minutes of 11/18/25. Yes, please. We have a motion to approve the minutes as submitted. Do we have a second? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Okay, November and December financial statement review. Angela, if you would help me out with that, please.
I will do that. One additional thing, some of you have copies of the policies to sign on your desk. Several of you returned ahead of time, but if you have a copy, can you please complete it and return it to me today so I don't have to send out the Uncle Raggers. Your November statements, there wasn't anything especially exciting about them. We're still working within budget, and at that point, year-to-date actual still showed $1.3 million in the net income side, which represented quite a bit of the spending left to do and reimbursements for 2025 work. We still have two, I think, pay requests left to do for December, so we're not quite complete with that yet, but we will be for sure before February 15th. We're certain of that. They've worked really hard in the finance department to make that happen.
Thank you guys, thank you very much.
It's been a wonderful pleasure doing business with them. Your December 31st balance sheet, your bank balance ended with just over $3 million in the bank. and, like I said, reflects most all of the expenditures. I think we have about 80,000 probably left in expenses that will flow into the December sheet before this is all said and done. Tax revenues, we met our goal, which was exciting, exceeded our goal by $30,000 roughly. And then last week I got another deposit from Department of Revenue, unexplained. What did I do? So we had such trouble with the portal this week, we still don't have access to pull reports, so they manually sent me a report. Once they answer their phones again, I will find out what that is for, but it appears to be interest earnings. I got an interest earnings last year. I went back and pulled it this morning. It was from 2022's interest, so I'm not sure if they've caught everything up now, or something has changed, or if it's sales tax. If it's sales tax, we'll take it. Either way, we'll take it. But we met that goal for revenues. Marketing costs probably will be under budget. We've got those left to do, and they're madly searching for any additional invoices that might qualify for 2025, or vendors that are late with them and that sort of thing. So that finishes up our income statement. Sales tax on the colorful sheet last month was 13.7% down. Not sure why, other than I did spot 2 of the larger businesses that didn't have any payments on the report. Still leaves us up 3.4% for the year. I suspect those will get caught up this month, plus we'll capture all the quarterly pay-ins on next month's report. So, do you have any questions for me?
How bad would we have to be in our December numbers to have this drop?
First of all, let me confuse everyone. This does not flow with our books.
I know.
And that is always confusing. Right now, we have collected a total of 11,220, and we had 12,260 last year total. So if that came in less than $1 million, we would not hit on this sheet.
Awesome.
But I suspect we will, because that's the Christmas sales, the December sales month. So.
Anybody else have any questions?
What do we project to be for our budget?
2.5.
This year, last year?
For the 2025 budget, we projected 2.5%. For 2026, we're projecting 3%.
3.
So, at this point, we beat inflation for 25.
Any other questions for Angela? Hearing none, I need a motion to go ahead and approve.
So moved.
Second.
I'll second.
All in favor, please say aye. All opposed? Okay. That being done, Explore Grants and Tourism Monthly Financial Report. Aaron.
Good morning.
Good morning.
You all have in your notes a copy of the Explore Grants and Tourism Statement of Activities for the year end as of December 31st. As Angela said, we are working to get all of the expenses in. Marketing and the sales teams have worked very hard with all of our vendors. Most of those invoices are in and have been reflected in billings. There could be a few remaining invoices that trickle in, but we are working to get all of those in so that those can be reflected for reimbursement. You will see, as Angela said, there is monies that were unspent at the end of the year. That is something that we have been communicating with Kirk all through the fourth quarter, so that is not a surprise at the last minute. That is something that we have been aware of. Largely that comes back to as we have negotiated through the year to work with marketing and not have to pay the agency fees. That resulted in that savings of about $500,000 that would have had to have been spent, but not necessarily gone into marketing. So we were able to spend wisely by not having to pay those agency fees. Heather does have plans for those dollars, and so again, we will work through the channels to have that approved when there's a plan. Are there any questions specifically about expenses in December or year end?
I failed to mention your revenue results.
Yes, revenues were up, particularly in publications. Kudos to the marketing team, and Lauren and Heather, as they, sold over where we had budgeted for vacation guide. You can see that on the publications revenue. Also, website revenue came in ahead of budget, slightly under budget for the year, but overall, very pleased with where revenue fell.
That's awesome. I know for me, just going off this last year, lots of discussions about vacation guide, lots of discussions about website, all the hard work that was put in from Heather, Miss Pam, the team, and everybody else, just getting those where we wanted them, and you're seeing the fruits of the labor. And then, of course, for the numbers at large, you know, where other destinations are getting beat up pretty hard in a turbulent time in the world, us being able to hold our own and stay ahead of the pace is a really huge blessing to all of us. So, thanks again for that.
And anytime we can use our money on marketing and not paying commissions, that's a very good thing. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Aaron, do you have any insight as to, so the publication was revenues up quite a bit, that's awesome. Website down a little bit, which is a little surprising to me, cause it feels like everybody's really pushing more to the digital, marketing, so any thoughts on why those flip-flopped a little bit, or why the website's down a little? I know that's a tough question, John.
Sure. No,
It's
no problem.
pretty broad.
We increased some of the fees for the vacation guide, so that did help with those costs. And then for the website revenue, we have to remember that our website was in a really bad situation at the beginning of last year. And we actually pulled back on some of the advertising opportunities because it just wasn't fair to charge anyone for advertising on a site that wasn't fully functioning and operating. So that was definitely an impact there.
Perfect, both of those make perfect sense.
May I have a motion to approve Aaron's report, please?
Make a motion.
I have a motion and a second to approve Aaron's report. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Let's move on to the 2025 marketing budget adjustment.
Aaron and I have been talking about that at length. One of the things that's changing with the district's audit this year is a Government Accounting Standards Board 103 rule, which says that we have to justify changes between original and final budgets. And honestly, it's the marketing budget line. There's 2 lines that would change. Those are the only 2 lines in the budget that did not, there were no changes during the year, so we're not adjusting everything. We would just need to flip-flop 2 line items by a small amount. Our auditors suggested that we might not want to do it this time and just look ahead a little better on our budgeting next year, for the next year, to be sure that we're in compliance. So I don't think we really need to accomplish that unless the rest of you would like to do that. And we can, I can write the paragraph in the audit. It's not hard if we need to do the adjustment.
And that standard takes effect,
June of 2025.
so it's in effect.
Yes.
Okay.
So, just to clarify, I know that in the budget, sometimes we move things from one category to another category. Is that what they're talking about?
Yes. If you change the
Really?
final budget. The other mechanism at play here is how we move those items under our contract with Explore Branson. We have to have specific invoices that we're moving from one line to another. And in order to do that, it would take us back into multiple months to move invoices that may have been paid in August or September. And like I said, it's
So from a corporate perspective, it's actually years ago, the first time I got involved in school board finances was the first time I ever saw the number of budget changes in a calendar year. I never saw that in the corporate world. It's really, it's a more of a public or charitable place And the reason for it is really fundamental. It's because when you make a change or you make that change, there needs to be like an earth moving event that causes you to make that change. Because the reason you budget is to make a projection at the beginning of the year. And when you change it in the middle of the year, you do away with having to have some kind of explanation as to why you were off budget. The whole point of budgeting is to make a plan and try and project what's going to happen. And when you change it willy-nilly, and that maybe wasn't the best choice of words, but when you change it along the way, you do away with planning. So, it makes, I'm not surprised that they made a rule change on it, because it's not the way, from a financial perspective, it's not the way most large organizations work. So, anyway, for what it's worth, I think we would be better off to just explain why we're off budget than to change the budget multiple times throughout the year.
And this variance will show up in our agreed upon procedures audit this year, because the line item was more than $100,000 out of line with budget. So we're already going to be explaining what the difference is in that document.
So, with what you said, if our bottom line comes out right, we shouldn't even really be moving the money around, is what it sounded like.
At the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. The purpose of establishing a budget is for planning.
Correct.
And so that if you have a variance, you just explain the variance. You don't need to move money around inside the buckets. It's counterintuitive, so.
Right, and I agree with everything you said, and for so many of these organizations, they almost put the budget together just to check the box to say they have a budget, and then every month they change it.
Right.
Like, well, that's why, and all these not-for-profits where I don't care really what the budget says, because they just change it as they want to. It's like, either you're gonna use it as a roadmap or you're not.
So,
when for example, when I worked for Marathon Petroleum Company for a number of years, and our budget didn't ever change. Like, it was super unusual, and in fact, we got audited because we changed our project budget one time when I was there, and it was a nightmare. Anyway, and it's a little bit different because you have stakeholders in the form of shareholders that they demand transparency.
Mm-hmm.
And, in some ways, I feel like that's more important for us than it is even in a public corporation.
Mhm.
So,
I agree, since we're using public
That's
taxpayer
right.
money,
that's right.
we really need to be squeaky clean.
Yep.
so can we pass that up, and
Sorry?
are we going to just go ahead and move on without an adjustment?
No action.
Well, that's fine with me, if we take no action. just-
I would prefer that we explain variances and not change our budget. So,
Okay.
it makes it more important that we actually try and budget, think about what's going to happen or what we know is going to happen before the year starts.
Well, and we all know in the real world, your budget is your
Yes.
roadmap, and you have a certain amount that you can spend, and it might be a little more here, a little less there, and, I mean, that's just real business, that's real life, so. Anybody else have any input on that?
I think the only problem my concern would be is we're a tourism marketing
Mm-hmm.
funnel. And so it's not to build up cash in the account, it's more to promote tourism in the area. So as long as we're ahead of budget, we're somehow spending that money as we go, I think that's the proper fiduciary.
Yeah, it doesn't mean you can't spend more, because if you collect more, then by all means, we're supposed to spend it. But it doesn't mean you need to add to the bucket.
Yeah.
So you just explain, hey, our income was better, than expected this year. We brought in more dollars, so we're going to spend them. That's the variance here. You just explain the variance.
Which actually makes it easier to track what happened, because if you
Absolutely.
make all the changes at the end of the year.
You don't know what the beginning budget was. You don't know what all the changes were you made along the way.
So if you have your beginning budget and then below all your variance explanations, it actually is much easier to understand what you really did with the money or why it changed. Do you know, though, we're a creature of statute, this organization is created by statute, are there statutory requirements of there are some places where you are required to maintain a balanced budget or a zero budget, or, and do we know if we have any statutory requirements on what our budget is supposed to say? Because sometimes we're forced to make those stupid entries to
Mhm.
zero it out at the end of
True.
the year.
We cannot pass a deficit budget, so we have to be zero or have
Or positive.
positive.
And we
With
have
that
to
being
pass it,
said,
but yeah, what's it say at the end of the year?
our budget, if it is deficit, we are spending from reserves. So to spend the money that wasn't spent in 25, that will basically be where additional funds would come from in the 26 budget that would not today be on our budget for 26.
Yeah, and I think there's a difference of passing a budget that's not deficit and operating as a deficit.
Yes.
I think clearly we would not pass a budget that shows us being negative. That doesn't mean we might not operate as a negative though, which I think are different things.
Mhm. Many public agencies operate in negative, but we don't want to.
So
Well,
then,
you don't wanna start out the year showing you're gonna operate in a negative.
No,
That's not
you do
okay.
not.
That doesn't get a lot of public favor.
It's not a good plan.
so with maintaining the GASB standard and then not blockading funds that need to go to their intended use, is there any downstream effect to changing what we're currently doing to the folks doing work in the field, timing delays, authorizations, anything that's unforeseen? If we're gonna change how we're doing things or modify how we're doing the reporting.
Because Heather and Kirk have been in constant contact for the last year, Heather's got projects that she's gonna bring to MOC, I think, for approval that will use what wasn't spent this year.
Cause it's like maintain the law, yep, we're gonna do that, and then just do that second check to make sure that like, yes, this side of the table's good, is this side of the table good, and if it is, then great.
I have no doubt that Heather can spend money. I don't doubt it. Can't you? I bet you can.
So, let me just I think maybe we more from where we started to where we ended, so let's make sure I understand what I'm tracking right. We started talking about whether or not we were gonna add a paragraph to, or talk about the budget adjustment. Where we morphed to, I think, is that we're not gonna make budget adjustments, we're just gonna explain variances. Those are seismic shifts right there, that's very different than what we've been doing.
Yes.
So I just wanna make sure that we all understand that that's what we're talking about. And I do think if that is what we're gonna do, I do think I would run that through our auditors as well, just to make sure that they don't have any problem with it, cause I do seem to recall some discussion in the audit about the budget and variances and things maybe. So I wanna make sure that they're okay, if that is going to be the new policy, that going forward, we don't change the budget, we just explain the variances. That's very different than what I think the organization's been doing. I don't have a problem with it, but I just wanna make sure we all understand that's what we're talking about.
I will double check with them.
That's a good recommendation.
No, it's not my recommendation, it's my clarification. Dan's recommendation.
He asked a question.
Let the minutes reflect, thank you for notes.
Potato, potato, come on.
All right, I will ask KPM.
Okay, and any other questions on that? Or comments?
Just a comment related to it, in a separate organization, using the same vendor, in a briefing, they brought up that rule in the briefing, so I would fully expect them to be prepared to have an answer on it.
And just to bring it up, how does that relate to what we do with Table Rock Chamber?
Doesn't?
No effect.
Shouldn't affect it? Same, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, we don't need to have a motion and an approval on that. Okay. Okay, next we're gonna move on to having a discussion about establishing a reserve account.
Kirk and I have been kicking around the cyclical nature of the business world and how there's generally a downturn at some point, 10 to 12, 8 to 10 years. And the end of the 2020 section is going to be upon us before we know it. And a lot of folks cut back on marketing when there isn't any money. We want to be sure that there is money within our budget, not just the credit line, but within our finances to be able to push harder when the market does turn down. So talked briefly with Greg about it. We don't want it to fly in the face of holding on to marketing funds that should be spent on marketing, but I am a big believer in being prepared for the downturns. It can be an accounting entry where we can see what we are segregating to go to that end. Doesn't have to be a separate bank account, doesn't need to be an investment account, the money stays where the money lives. But on our books, we need to demonstrate that we're being fiscally responsible towards the downtimes, is my opinion. Do you have
So
any
would that
opinion?
be a percentage of what we would normally spend or a flat dollar amount?
Yes.
I would think you would do a percentage of spending with a cap. That would be my thought.
The entire discussion we have when we vision cast for where we're going is 2026. We're through. 27, 8, and 9, and 30 is where's the vision? Where are we going to be, and how will we leave this? Living through 2020 in this building with that guy right there, I think some of you were on the board at the time. I know you were a committee member at the time. You know, it affected his family. It affected my family. It affected your families here. And you study Las Vegas, they're down 80%. Orlando was down, Vegas was down 90%. Orlando was down 80%. Branson was only down 50%. But I watched what we went through. And you say, well, how do you know? Well, 1950, what happened? Korean conflict. 1960, the Vietnam conflict. 1970s, this country was in a different station. Inflation in the Iran hostage thing in 1980. The Gulf War in 1990. 9/11 in 2001. 2010, the housing and the market crash. 2020, the COVID pandemic, which we lived through. 2030 is coming. The power grid and the AI suck. Every time you take a photo, we don't have power in this country, and what's projecting right now is the power drop and the power grid change. Well, how will we be prepared to tell people to come on vacation so we don't go through what we went through in 2020? We got through it. It wasn't easy. It affected many, many families in this region. And I know it's coming, and so do you. But what are we doing about it this time as adults versus, oh, this happened to us? I just don't want our hands up. I want to be ready to be forward. I want to be 2030 and 2035 vision oriented as this organization, as this district grows, with the advent of what's going on west and east and north and south of here, and internally downtown here. Be prepared for this. And you know, is it a percentage? Is it a way to do it? Should we always have it? You're the experts, you're the vision casters, but I'm back casting right now. And that's a term that Jack Stack has given me explicitly for the past 13 months that I've sat with him. We've got to back cast and understand this, because forecasting's not hard. But we want to be curious about what's coming and not be reactionary to the numbers that we have. We want to be ready and curious to how to be prepared should we have, and we will have, another event. 2030 is coming, are we ready, is really the theme of this approach. So your expert advice, recommendation to the board is really what we want to look at. And I'm not talking about this year or next year or 28. I'm talking about 29, 30, and 31 is really what I'm talking about.
So what we're saying is we want to be proactive rather than reactive.
Yeah.
And do we want to set a little bit aside every year, or do we want to just take a big chunk? Or, I mean, there's things that we need to kind of guide the district.
How much is in reserve?
We do not currently have an established reserve. Our bank account ended December with $3 million. So, to me, on our books, we need to designate something as reserve. And I agree, we need a cap on it. It doesn't need to just keep
Well, and I
filling
think,
up.
you know, Greg's commented earlier about us being a marketing organization. I think we need to think long and hard about how much money we're willing to, you know, to stuff away, so to speak. And, you know, there are no rules on that. Like, are there any rules that say we can't?
No?
There's nothing established. Okay, because I don't know the answer to that question. So, I mean, I go, okay, you know, we took a 20% hit in 2020. Is that what we need to plan for? You know, I don't know what the right answer is. That seems like an awful lot of money to set aside. So,
I also think, I mean, we're not a private company, right? So reserve accounts for this organization be different than we might have in a private business. But if we just look at like the COVID, for example, if we would have had $100 million in the bank to market, the people still couldn't come. Right? So there's still, some of these events we talk about, we could tell them all to come with all the money we have in the world, but they still don't have the ability to come or do anything the way that they would have. We don't have a facility or a building that we have to plan for roofs and other types of things. We have a lease there. I don't know what the statute says, but I bet it does. I don't think we're prohibited from having a reserve account, but I think ultimately that money has to be spent on marketing. So the
You're
question is the dollar that we spend today gonna get a better return than the dollar we put in the bank and use for marketing 5 years from now?
Right.
You know, are we, get the money in, try to get the people here now, and hope that builds, and actually when people coming, spending more money, then increases what we can spend next year? Or do we have to hit that hole, like you said, and something happens and now we don't have any revenue coming in, and how do we market to the people?
Well-
Because ultimately that's what our money's spent for, right?
Here's where we won in 2020. The lake had its banner year. The amount of people that had to be outdoors on boats,
Oh, yeah.
camping, VRBO, can't be in
Anything outside, yeah.
can't be in joint units in hotels. You know, you talked to Brett Stump at our board meeting Thursday, and he can qualify and certainly quantify the exact impact 2020 has done and what it's maintained to carry this bridge into the, you know, being outdoors. So, you know, marketing to that side would definitely, from backcasting and understanding that, that's who we would go after. Because if a theater gets closed because of X, Y, or Z, or can't light their lights, but a lake doesn't need lights,
Right.
we've got a window here for tourism that has nothing to do with electricity on a lot of levels. It can be outdoors. We can look at some of the things that happened in the pandemic.
So to that point, which I think is a great point, if you're gonna plan a forecast, those are seeds to be planting now, not when that event occurs. That resource exists now, that opportunity exists now.
That's right.
So those are seeds we should be watering right now and planting so that when it does some type of event, let's just use COVID, that's an easy example, we're able to build upon what we've already been doing. Because if we wait till that time, it's almost too late.
I thought at one time, somewhere, we had in our discussion historically that we would keep $1 million unassigned, something just.
By the end of the year.
That resolution said that we would try to end our year with $1 million in the bank. That was as far as it went. I'm sorry?
You guys talked to Derek Smith or something?
I did put a call into Derek, but I haven't got to talk to him about this one yet. That was what I was hoping I'd get before
It
today.
was always on unwritten, but it's always been discussed. It's been in minutes and all those kind of things. But that's always been a goal, to be able to mark it back
Resolution by the committee.
and turn it up.
How much is the credit line?
2 point something.
2.5 or something.
Yes.
And we haven't used it at all.
Like 250 or 250 or 2.5 million?
So 2.
It's over 2 million.
The credit line is over 2 million.
$2.5 million.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and we haven't touched it at all.
No.
We used it a little last year because of my inexperience, but
Right.
we could have
So
stretched.
yes, that would
I've
cover.
always kind of felt like that's kind of the reserve.
Okay.
That it's almost the best of both worlds. We're allowed to spend the marketing money we have right now and still have that backup.
It's a good recommendation.
You know, I mean, that's, because we're talking about these catastrophic, crazy events where we don't wanna try to get into that, but if we had to, if we were gonna make a play, we got a $2.5 million credit line, that's a pretty solid reserve.
Agreed.
I can remember 2020, we were sitting here looking at the tourism tax in Grantsville, but Stone County was up 6%.
That's exactly right.
And I asked Dennis Wood, I said, what the heck's going on over there? And he said, it's called Table Rock Lake.
Yes, sir.
You know.
Well, Dennis was selling moonshine, but the lake had a lot to do with it. God rest his soul.
My other struggle is that just 2 or 3 years feel like we've already handcuffed, I love the idea of a reserve with the right parameters, but I'm struggling to try to figure out how to take more away from them when we already took such a big chunk away.
I just needed it verbalized. I needed you all to understand what we're going into in the next 3 or 4 years.
I think that's perfect. I think we should be thinking about that. And I'm not saying the reserve isn't something we need to work towards. I'm just internally knowing how much we took away the last couple of years.
Yep.
Until they figure out, obviously, some of their revenue things, they're figuring those out. Those are getting better. We have some big contracts that are falling off that, will help. But I'm just struggling to figure out where we take more money from them.
Excellent.
Thank you. That's what we needed.
Thank you.
And I think that's something we revisit, right?
Yeah.
I think that's not a bad.
Yeah.
But I'm with you. I always seem to remember we had something, I guess it was just unwritten. We always had a little.
Yeah.
We had a
For sure.
restriction. Yeah.
Case, worst case. And at that, when it hit, I think we had over $1 million on our line when that hit. But I don't know if you guys remember, we got all this grant money.
Yeah.
Yes.
And it paid it.
It was a different world.
Yeah.
And I don't know that that's going to happen again in that fashion, but we've lived through it, and furloughing people and sending people away. And, we can learn from Stone County's efforts for the lake. There's part of Table Rock Lake and Taney County. There's part of lakes all over this region. How do we partner and stay strong to invite America and others to come to this area to vacation?
Yeah, I think that's the real discussion.
Yeah.
That's the real
Yeah.
reserve, if you will.
Yeah.
How do we start working on that one?
Yeah. Thank you.
I think, our budget's getting bigger all the time. A long time ago, they said, hey, $1 million is a good threshold, and our budget's bigger than that. So I think, hey, why don't you talk to Derek, because Derek was
Yep.
around at that time.
Yep.
And maybe see what his thinking is, but like Max says, something we can come back and revisit on.
Correct.
And the last thing for me is like you were saying, we gotta use the tools that we have available, we gotta be prudent, whenever we're budgeting taxpayer funds. What comes to mind for me is like, this is not a guarantee, so the existence of this is up for renewal, every 10 years or whatever interval it is. And so if you start creating a perception that we're holding in reserve and taking on the function of a bank, it could break the confidence of voters, and there's only a small percentage of people that actually even participate in that process to begin with. So, and the effects would be detrimental if we didn't have it. So just giving no reason or a gap to invest while we can invest now, and build the infrastructure before an incident would hit.
Any other comments on this at all before we move on? Okay, nothing to vote on there because we haven't really made a decision. So we'll move on to the Marketing Opportunity Fund report. And I guess Ashley's not here today.
Ashley is on a plane to SIDA.
Okay.
She got on early this morning. She just got back from ABA last week, and she's gone again. And asked me, to answer any questions on the TCED Opportunity Fund. You all have it in your packet. I think the final quarter of 2025, no commitments for the Opportunity Fund. We had the $100,000 that was approved to be utilized for the Christmas in July campaign with Hallmark, and I think that was a very good use of those dollars. And so between the paid out commitments and the advertising with Hallmark, a total of $174,000 was utilized of the $175 for the opportunity funds for 2025. We had a couple of events that we had worked with for the opportunity fund. They did not meet the requirements, so there was $0 paid out. But you'll see the future commitments for the dates in 2026. It's already a strong year there. 2027 and 2028. So they're all listed. And again, just a reminder on the opportunity funds that if they do not meet the requirements, then there's nothing paid out on those. So I'll answer any questions that I can.
In the past, our report digitally, we had links to the contracts. Is that something that we could add to this report?
Okay.
So that when we do have questions before the meeting, sometimes we can answer them ourselves.
I will pass that on.
Thank you.
Anybody have any questions on that report? Do we need to vote to accept that? Okay, accept a motion to approve,
So moved.
second. All in favor of approving the report, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign.
Who seconded?
Greg.
Greg seconded, thank you.
Next, we will move on to the 2025 agreed upon procedures audit and select the months to review.
Last year, we decided when we approved the agreed upon procedures that we did not want to select the months up front that were going to be audited at the end of the year. So we need to select which months they were. We brainstormed it and we think that March, October, and December have been the traditional months.
I think March, July, and December
July,
were the
December.
three used for the last few years.
So that falls in line generally with the most dollars spent. And then I looked in the drawer of paper and it pretty much aligns with the bigger handfuls of paper months. So I don't know how you wanna decide which months you want to audit this time.
So that decision was made basically upon volume that's done during those months.
I don't know what the original rationale was, but that's what seems to be the practice.
Okay. And this here is a list of all the things that we need to adhere to.
This is the agreed upon procedure for this year's AUP audit.
Okay.
And then we'll talk about 26's audit in a minute.
Does anybody have any input on the months that we review?
I think you need to shake it up and not keep it the same months.
I think that was the whole point of the discussion, was that we not repeatedly do the same months. I'm a little perplexed as to why we're making that decision. I feel like that should be the auditor, but that's just my knee-jerk response.
We've always given direction to the auditor of which months to choose.
Gotcha, okay.
And what months have it been in here?
March, July, and December.
When they review the months, are they reviewing just that month or a year-to-date up to that point?
We're only reviewing that month's
Just that
work.
month.
Any input at all?
And I get why they're doing the months, it makes sense, but at the same time, it's like, we need to definitely shake up. It's getting too,
So do we have three that are the
Right.
next ones down, I guess, from those?
I mean, you can easily do April, August, and November, but you're not gonna have like that same volume you get in March with spring break. August, you got kids going back to school, and November, you're only gonna get the tail end of Thanksgiving.
This is not completely a financial audit, this is more a contract compliance audit.
Okay.
So you're looking at, were the reports submitted when they were supposed to be? Do you have your affidavits of publication and to go with your invoices for that month? Those sorts of activities that are, it's not as much a revenue or expense checking
Okay.
exercise as it is complying with our contract.
So then pick a month of the year.
Well, maybe we shouldn't throw them all out, maybe we should keep March and then do, like you mentioned, August and November, and not throw all the months out.
Isn't January though typically heavy in terms of their outflow?
No, it's really light. I was surprised too, because I thought, boy, we're kicking off the year, we're going to all these conferences. Those bills, sponsorship wise, would have been paid in the third quarter, and travel expenses would be the majority of what was spent. I think I've got one January pay request so far, because there aren't a lot of invoices coming through.
Well, we need to tell the auditors something, guys.
When were they last the year before?
They were March, July, and December.
The last 3 years have been March, July, December.
And it was suggested we do April, August, and November.
I would change all of them to that.
You would change them all?
Is that your first motion?
I think so.
Coming in hot there, Melissa.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor for our audit to utilize the months of April, August, and November.
I second it.
Yep, second, so she's calling for discussion. So, on the months changing with it being a precedent from the last 3 years in the same date or same month, there shouldn't be any secondary effects besides the fact that this is happening in a different calendar, not a workload shift, not a, so it's purely an administrative decision. Okay.
Any other further discussion on that? Okay, we'll go ahead and vote on the motion to have the months that are reviewed be April, August, November. All in favor of that motion, please say aye, or in favor of that, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Same sign? Okay. April, August, and November.
And I included a copy of this year's agreed upon procedures document so that you would have it to start thinking on 26s. We tend to approve the document in April, so if you have any thoughts on changing it, I just thought this was a good time to put it in your hands, so when we meet again in April, we can have studied it, and if we found anything we want to change, be ready.
On item number 3 on here, identify all research paid for by the district and that has been shared with the district. I thought the attorney said that some of the research that we had was not allowed to be shared with the district, and so I don't know if this is counterproductive to that.
I don't believe we publish the detailed raw data of any research, do we? We just take the aggregate reports, and that's what we pay for, is the aggregate report. We don't pay for Bobby bought $20 here or there kind of information.
I thought the attorney told us in that meeting that we weren't allowed to share some of that stuff.
That was part of one of the contracts,
Okay.
contract discussions,
Okay.
but I don't think it,
But that referred to the raw data, not to the actual,
yes.
okay. Okay. procedures for the audit? Do we need to have a motion on this?
No, I think we leave it till April and then come back after we've thought about it a little bit maybe. And I will talk to the auditor as well, because we're getting ready to set up fieldwork dates and see if
Okay.
there's something that they see as a gap between the contract and the compliance document.
Okay. Okay, we are to the point of the meeting for announcements and public comments. Alex?
Yes, I think it'd be in order to shout out again, kudos to the team for performance on the Today Show. Fox and Friends, bringing an entire set from the Great American Family Channel to our hometown of downtown, SDC, the district. These things don't happen by accident, and I certainly don't take it for granted. So kudos again for all the hard work.
I was gonna say, thank you, Pam, or whoever got the, Christmas movie production here.
Heather's planted a seed and then watered and fertilized it like all crazy. You know, the relationship that Great American Media has with College of the Ozarks definitely helped, and you know, Bill Abbott recognizing that faith, family, flag core values align perfectly with the core values of Great American Media certainly didn't hurt. So life's about relationships, and somebody that plants the seed, waters and tills and fertilizes, and Heather has done all the heavy lifting on that. And I went with her on Friday out to Silver Dollar City to the set, and every production person, everyone there with the film crew know her by name and came up and said they couldn't believe how much she had helped them. And I even had one of the film producers that said, I work with CVBs all over the state of Missouri. None of them know how to do it like you all do. So
awesome.
it was, and that was unsolicited. I mean, when he found out who I was, he wanted to make sure that I knew that, and that's because the devil is in the details, and that's where her jam is at. So
Did you find the workout room for the 2 male divas?
Did. Now, they're
All right.
eating their eggs.
We'll see if they approve while they're here.
They
Well-
love it. I was out there yesterday,
Uh-huh.
and we had a holiday party shoot, and we were able to get Mayor Milton. He played himself, Mayor Milton, in the movie, so stay tuned. You'll get to see him on camera. And one of the lead actors came right up to me and said how he's having the best time, even though it was freezing and he felt like his ears were going to fall off. He said he's seriously considering moving here and making this his home outside of LA.
and moving his dad here.
Yes, moving his father here.
Because he loves Branson. I mean, he said my dad would just thrive here. So
Yeah. We do have another movie, we have another production crew coming in. I'll be leaving to meet with them in just a few minutes here. And if all goes well, filming on that one will start in mid-April. And it will again be a Christmas movie, tentatively scheduled to be called Ozark Country Christmas, since this one has taken Ozark Mountain Christmas. And that one will be a little bit longer, be a 3-week production. And it will not include Silver Dollar City. It will be a different kind of storytelling. Once again, big city girl coming to Branson, falling in love. Predictable, but different.
Matt, she's describing every Hallmark movie there.
And when does this movie wrap? When is this supposed to wrap?
The current movie right now wraps Friday night.
Okay.
They will have their wrap party Friday evening, and they spoke to them yesterday while I was doing my grocery shopping. They've asked if we will supply Branson themed gifts for all of the crew. So we'll be putting that together for all of their departing gifts. They all love Branson so much, they all wanted a souvenir. And of course, they're all operating under filmmakers' budgets, which is not big. And then they will be moving out of the Silver Dollar City lodging and the theme park on over the weekend. They gotta get all their stuff out, all their details gone, and then we have golf carts that we had delivered out there that will be picked up, and they will all be departing by Sunday evening. But during the weekends, they've stayed, and we have arranged for things for them to do. They've gone to the zoo, they've done the Titanic Museum, they've eaten at different restaurants, we got them into Ripley's. They've taken advantage of all the things, and our partners have been very generous with offering discounts and supporting the crew to go through and experience Branson to its fullest.
Awesome. Anybody else? And I wanna do a shout out, because Heather sent us kind of a report of what advertising and what promotions are being done during January and February. There's been a lot of stakeholders that were concerned that nothing was being done, and that was a good assurance that things are being done during January and February, so thank you for that. Anybody else have anything for the common good? If not, I take a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Second.